Hey, how's it going everyone? I'm Bricko, and today we're going to be going over the top 10 best free-to-play characters in LEGO Legacy Heroes Unboxed. All of these characters are going to be either farmable on a hard node, on a monolith waste node, or farmable in the stores. So let's start off at number 10 with Hiker. You're probably very familiar with this guy. You get him very early on. He's one of the very first units you unlock, and he is a fantastic healer. He has one of the best AoE heals in the game, so he can heal up your entire team with his second ability, and it's quite a substantial heal when he's at a higher star level. He's also very useful in the early game because a lot of the first starter characters deal AoE damage, so having an AoE healer is really helpful. His basic attack deals a decent amount of damage, and it gives him a 50% chance to gain 20% pep. Pep, if you don't know, is a little blue circle to the left of the health bar, and when that fills up, the character will take their turn. It's also known as turn meter. And then Hiker also has a 40% chance to give defense up to the weakest ally at the start of his turn, which will also help protect your team and make sure that they're taking less damage. So he is a very effective healer that will help keep your entire team alive for longer. He's not quite as viable at the end game, but he's really effective in the early to mid game. And he's also one of the easiest farms since he's available from Monolith Waste 1.6, so you're going to get access to this character very early on, and you can start building him up pretty quickly. Number 9 on this list is Captain Redbeard. He's going to be a bit of a slower farm. You only get 3 tiles for him every single day, and you get those if you complete your daily activities, which you definitely should be doing because you get a lot of great rewards for doing it, including those Captain Redbeard tiles. Now, Captain Redbeard is a very well-rounded and versatile character that really works in a variety of teams. Of course, he's mainly supposed to work in a pirate/buccaneer team, but he can also work in many others, like even castle teams, or even like Ninjago or whatnot, and that's just because he is such a solid character with a lot of really good abilities. Even his basic ability is one of the best in the game because it can apply Disarmed, and Disarmed prevents enemies from using their special abilities, which is really powerful. And then his passive gives him a chance to counterattack when pirate allies are damaged, and whenever he counterattacks, he's going to be using his basic, which will be another chance to apply that Disarmed. So he's really useful for controlling the enemy units and stopping them in their tracks. And he also deals a lot of damage with his second special and ultimate ability. His ultimate also applies unresistible debuffs, so that also helps with, as I said, controlling the enemy units. And then his second special can apply stun, which is really nice because stun, if you don't know, in this game, stun actually disables passive abilities. So it can like prevent a zombie from reviving, it can prevent Jester from healing, or Bernabus from counterattacking. So because of that, stun is probably the most powerful debuff currently in the game. And then on top of that, Redbeard also has the only full team cleanse in the game, so not only is he good at applying debuffs, but he's also probably the best character in the game at removing them from his own team. So in a way, Redbeard is kind of an effective counter to pirates. And I also think that once the 2 new pirates are released, Hank and Scarlet, I think the Buccaneers will become one of the best teams in the entire game, and of course Redbeard will be critical to that team. At number 8, we have Cook Bart. He's of course a vital component to any pirate team, but as with a lot of the characters on this list, he works well in just about any team, and that's because of his heal ability. He has one of the best single target heals in the game. I think it can get to around 8,000-9,000 per heal, and he can use this ability every other turn. It's only a 2-turn cooldown, and you'll notice that Cook Bart is a much more effective healer than Hiker in the mid to late game. Hiker's heal when maxed does around 4,500 to each character, but that ability is a 3-turn cooldown, whereas Bart's is a 2-turn cooldown, and it's an almost 8,000-9,000 heal. And yes, that is going to one character and not the entire team, but as you start to unlock characters like Jester and Bernabus and Lloyd, you'll notice that single target heals are much more important. And the other ability that makes Cook Bart very effective, especially in the Glyph Hunt campaign, is this one right here that deals 120% damage, and then if the target had 2 or more debuffs, he will copy one of them to another enemy. This is great when paired with either Redbeard or Reed, because Reed and Redbeard can both stun the enemy, and then Cook Bart can actually copy that stun and stun another character. So you'll find that Bart paired with Redbeard and Reed, and maybe a character like Hiker and one other, is very effective at clearing through the Glyph Hunt campaigns and can get you all the way to the very end. And then his other abilities can apply debuffs as well, which will just synergize very well with the rest of the pirate faction. At number 7 here, we actually have 2 characters paired together, Bernabus and Magisto. And of course, they also work really well with Jester, but he's a bit higher on the list. These 2 characters work really well together, and that's because of their passive abilities. So taking a look at Bernabus's passive right here, it gives him a chance to counterattack whenever he takes damage from a foe. If we take a look at Magisto's passive, amongst some other good bonuses to Castle and King's Court heroes, he will also give a 15% heal whenever a Castle hero counterattacks, which Bernabus is going to be doing a lot. So often he'll taunt, then enemies are forced to attack him, and then he'll counterattack and regain a bunch of health, which can often be more than the damage dealt, which makes him one of the most difficult tanks to kill. And then they also have some other really good abilities as well. Bernabus's special ability right here, Duel the Dragon Master, will actually clear all buffs from the target enemy, which is very useful when going up against Lloyd, because Lloyd already has one of the highest base dodges in the game, but on top of that he gains dodge up 2, and he can gain defense up 2 as well. So being able to clear those with this ability right here is really helpful and will help you get through Lloyd a bit easier. Although Bernabus doesn't have a lot of speed, we can see that he only has 90, so he's probably going to go last on your team, so his buff to spell will only happen after your other units have taken their first turn, but it's still a useful ability. And then of course he also has a taunt, which will force units to attack him, and then both this ability and his basic can apply some useful debuffs like attack down 2 and speed down 2, and then at the bottom here, if Magisto is an active hero, increases pep by 10%. So every time he counterattacks, he's going to use his basic, and if Magisto is active, he'll gain 10% pep. So he will take a lot of turns, even though his speed is a bit slower. And then of course Magisto is an absolutely insane character as well. You can get tiles for him from achievements, that's the only way to get his tiles. So for this combo you really only have to farm one character. His ultimate here deals both single target damage and AoE damage, and can apply a bunch of damage over time effects, as well as Dizzy, which is very effective. And then he has a bit of a heal, and he can also give payback, which will guarantee that counterattack, which will guarantee that heal from his passive. He also has some pretty decent damage and can also inflict clumsy as well as disarmed to techie enemies. And then his basic can actually copy buffs from enemies to himself, which sometimes that buff that's copied can be taunt, which isn't super helpful because you don't want Magisto to taunt, but if it's pretty much any other buff, it will be super helpful. Firefighter Ash is right here at number 6. She is arguably the second best attacker in the entire game. However, she is an arena store farm, and I personally recommend farming someone like Lloyd before you go for Ash here. So if you really want that extra damage, I recommend you farm someone like Highwayman. We'll talk about him in just a second. But yeah, other than her farming location, she is a fantastic character. Basically, she gains this thing called Courage whenever a tank hero takes damage, and then she could use that courage to do a lot more damage with her second and third special abilities. So if you pair her with a couple of really solid tanks, like maybe Lloyd and Jester, she'll be putting out some pretty massive damage numbers. And then her basic attack on a critical hit will give her a 40% chance to gain 20% pep, so there are quite a few conditions there for her to actually gain that pep, but pep gain on a basic is always useful because whenever they are called to assist or counterattack, they're going to be using their basic ability, and this will constantly be giving them that chance to gain pep, which will mean that they will end up taking more turns. Hiker also has a pep gain on basic. I'm not sure if I talked about that, but it is pretty useful, similar to the way that Bernabus just had one if he's paired with Magisto. And now we're moving on to the top 5, starting with Jester. He is a fantastic combination of a tank and a healer, thus why he's classified as a support. He is a castle and a King's Court unit, so he's going to work really well with Magisto and Bernabus. That trio right there is one of the best trios in the entire game. Jester is also going to benefit from Magisto's passive. Now, what really makes Jester powerful is his passive ability, which will give him a 50% chance, which is 100% when he's taunting, to heal the weakest ally for 20% of his max health. And then there's a plus 15% bonus heal if he has taunt. So it's going to be a 35% heal if he's taunting, and that will go to the weakest ally every time he is damaged. And then he also has a taunt ability, and when he's controlled by the AI, he will actually use this strategically when other allies are starting to fall low on health. And then his other 2 abilities do some pretty good damage as well, and his basic attack gives him a chance to gain critical damage up, which will just make him do even more damage. And his second special, if it actually defeats an enemy, will reset the cooldown on his taunt, which can be very effective. 4th on the list is Highwayman. You can see I don't have very many tiles of this guy. I only have him at 2 stars, almost at 3. I'm trying to get him up higher right now, but he's often considered the best attacker in the entire game, and he's considered better than Ash because of this ability right here, which will basically keep him under stealth for most of the battle. So most times he'll end up being the last unit left alive, so he'll end up doing more damage throughout the course of the battle, whereas Ash might die a bit sooner since the enemies might be able to target her. He's also very speedy. He gains I think it's speed up with this ability right here. Yeah, he gains speed up when he has stealth, which he can also get from Lloyd as well. And Lloyd is actually 2 speed faster than Highwayman. Lloyd is 130, Highwayman is 128. So Lloyd can go first, use his stealth ability, and then Highwayman can use this one. So he'll gain dodge up 2 as well, since he already had stealth. So even if he is hit by an AoE attack, chances are that he will dodge that one, and it is a 3-turn dodge up 2, so once his 2-turn stealth runs out, he'll still have dodge up 2 for 1 more turn, which will make it difficult to target him even during that 1 turn that he doesn't have stealth, although Lloyd might put him under stealth during that time anyway, or a tank might be taunting or something along those lines. And then he has, of course, massive damage, and yeah, like I said earlier, his passive gives him speed up whenever he gains stealth, and he'll also get plus 15% crit chance whenever he has stealth as well, which means that he'll be getting more critical hits and thus doing a lot more damage. He's a really solid attacker, works in just about any team, so I do recommend that you farm this character, which I have recently begun doing myself. Number 3 is Aurora. When she is paired with the Ice Glider set, she can be one of the most overpowered characters in the entire game. Mainly because of this ability right here, which reassembles a random defeated hero and heals them for 30% of their max health. Now, this ability has a cooldown of 4 turns, which is quite long, but if you have the Ice Glider set, it's going to reset the cooldown for this ability whenever someone is defeated. So you can just keep using this over and over, and it's super effective, especially when you pair her with a character like Lloyd or Jester, or even all 3 of them, because like if Jester dies, or maybe Lloyd dies, Aurora can just bring them right back. And she also has a really solid single target heal. It heals them for 50% of their max health. Also, her passive ability, whenever a hero is defeated, Aurora's pep is increased by 40%, and she gains speed up 2 for 2 turns, and the Ice Glider grants an additional 20%, so it's going to be a total of 60% pep immediately for her, and speed up 2, so she is going to take that next turn very quickly, and then she's going to be able to use cryotherapy immediately and bring that unit back. And her basic is also decent as well. It deals 100% damage to the target foe and has a 50% chance to inflict dodge down 2 on them for 2 turns, which can be useful against Lloyd or another character with a high dodge rating. So it's the same thing with her as it was for Highwayman. Pretty much any team she'll work well in. Pirates, Castle, Ninjago, everything. But typically you're going to want to use the Ice Glider at a minimum of 4 stars if you're going to use Aurora, because those revives are critical, and if you can keep chaining them back to back to back, it's going to be really effective. One other character that she works really well with is Yuppie, who is actually number 2 on our list here. This guy is the only other character in the game that has a revive ability, and this one is very similar to Aurora's, except it also gives a pep increase of 50%. So these two are obviously very powerful together, because if one dies, the other can just bring them back, and it's very effective to have two revivers on your team, because typically the enemy is going to want to take out the Aurora, because she can just keep chaining revives over and over and over with the Ice Glider set. So if you can get her out, the battle becomes much easier. But with Yuppie here, he's just going to bring her right back. Besides that, he's also just a very effective character in other ways. First of all, his ultimate is the only mass assist ability in the entire game. It starts by dealing 100% damage to the target foe, plus 10% bonus damage for each stack of termination that he has, and then he clears all termination from himself, and then all active heroes assist for 50% damage. And then he inflicts himself with Dizzy for 1 turn. Dizzy, by the way, prevents counterattacks, assisting, and pep gain. So he's going to be kind of not as effective while he's waiting for his next turn, but it's really not going to make that big of a difference. But this ability can easily get up to a lot of damage, and termination will actually increase his offense by 9%. At the max level, and this does max at 5 stacks, so a total of 45% additional damage. And with his ultimate, it looks like he does the damage and then clears the stacks afterwards, so that deals 100% damage, and the 10% bonus damage is going to be scaled off of his increased damage from termination, I think. So whatever his attack is, plus 45%, and then 100% of that, and then 10% bonus damage for each stack of termination, something along those lines. So it does get up to a lot of damage, but he also has some other really interesting abilities as well. His first special ability right here, you select a target hero and then they're inflicted with Overworked, and they're granted crit chance up 2 for 3 turns and speed up 2 for 3 turns. Overworked, by the way, will deal 5% max health damage to them at the start of each one of their turns while they have the debuff. So it'll do some damage to them, but it's not a ton of damage, and it can be useful to put on Highwayman to get him more crit chance up. And even if he's damaged by Overworked, it won't really matter since he's hiding under stealth anyway, so he'll have plenty of time to heal up. And then his basic can actually do a ton of damage as well when he starts stacking up those termination stacks. It deals 100% damage to the target foe, and if he has 5+ stacks, he gains dodge up 1 as well. And by the way, he gains termination when one of your heroes is defeated, and with Aurora, a defeated hero doesn't really matter. So you're going to be able to get those stacks of termination without too much worry. Typically, you don't want your own units to be defeated, but if you have Aurora in your team, you'll just be able to bring them back, and Yuppie can bring back units as well. And then at first, as you probably saw coming, is Lloyd. In my opinion, he is the best character in the game. He fits in just about any single team, castle, pirates, pretty much anything. And that's mainly because of his second special ability right here, where he grants all other heroes stealth for 3 turns, grants crit chance up to Ninjago allies, and then he has a 100% chance to gain dodge up 2 for 3 turns, and if he has less than 100% health, he gains defense up 1 for 3 turns as well. So Lloyd is going to be the only character you can target for 3 turns, and most of your attacks will be dodged by him anyway. And this ability has a 4-turn cooldown, so there's only 1 turn in there where your allies are not going to have stealth, which is typically not long enough to actually take one of them out. And then if you're running Yuppie or Aurora in your team, you can just bring Lloyd right back if he happens to die. So you can see why he is such a powerful character. And on top of that, he also has a self-heal ability, which is a 30% max heal. And then his basic isn't too bad as well. He'll deal 120% damage and has a 70% chance to inflict accuracy down 2 for 2 turns. And if it's a critical hit, it'll inflict clumsy on them. So accuracy down will just increase the chance that enemies are going to dodge Lloyd's. So it's just more dodging and more sustainability for Lloyd. Now, the devs have said that they're going to be nerfing this character in some way. Personally, I think the only thing that's going to be changed is the dodge part of his kit. I think they're going to remove the dodge up 2, but keep the defense up, keep his self-heal, and keep the stealth part of his kit. If anything, they might actually add some synergies to the new Ninjago characters that are going to be added. Well, we know at least one new character is going to be added. My guess is either Jay or Cole, and then either Master Wu or Garmadon are going to become accessible soon as a master event. My guess is Wu, and with the Ninjago rework, it's possible that Lloyd might gain some synergy with Master Wu, or maybe he will gain some synergy with this new Ninjago character in the same way that, like, Kai has synergy with Nia and Zane has synergy with Master Wu and whatnot. Also, the devs confirmed that a whole new neighborhood of sets is going to be opened for Ninjago. Now, I think the set we will get first is Lloyd's Green Dragon, because that's the set that's shown in one of the LEGO Legacy promotional images right here at the top. I never noticed it before, but that is Lloyd's Dragon. So if that is the set added, it's almost bound to have more synergies with Lloyd and make him better in some way. So I don't really see this character getting any worse in the future. I think he's going to get only better, even if they do remove the dodge part of his kit. So I think he's going to stay at the top of this list for a while, and I think you definitely should be farming him from the arena store, at least up to 5 stars as a minimum. Well, that concludes my list for the top 10 best free-to-play characters in LEGO Legacy. Hopefully this list helped you out in some way, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.